This is a visual representation of reincorporated dialogue. When something is said in this movie, it comes into focus and it is immediately taken away because it seems to fit in the context. We don't know that it has a whole big picture later, but every time we do see it, it's partially obstructed, but fits into the context until we get it confirmed for us in the film.
I really like you, Mary Spavo.
There is genius to the dialogue reincorporation, and a great many other things we'll be talking about, including the Blue Ruin, the stages of grief, the sound design reveals, the Stalker book, the science of forgetting, Joel's experience, Clem's experience, and the difference in between their experiences, the script, the in-camera effects, and a partridge in a pear tree, and the editing. So, if you haven't watched the movie with some of these things in mind, now's the time to do it, because I'm about to start spoiling shit in 3, 2, 1. Joel wakes up not recognizing his PJs, but just kinda says fuck it and goes on with his day. Recognizes 2 years worth of journal entries gone, keeps writing. Goes up to a house, hears voices, but ignores them. 4 minutes, we know that Joel ignores his problems. Joel watches Clementine spike her coffee in the cafe. Then on the train, she tells him that her hair color is called Blue Ruin. And then later in her apartment, she makes them a drink. And when she brings it to him, she says, 2 blue ruins, as in gin, like the Tom Waits song. Earlier in the film, Joel said he woke up in a funk this morning, a really cool character parallel when Clementine is apologizing for her behavior and says she's just out of sorts today. In her apartment, she invites him to go to the Charles with her. He calls her later that night and she says, honeymoon on ice. Now the next scene is the Lake Charles scene, so there wasn't much foreshadowing, but it was there. So we meet Patrick just before the opening credits, and then again when the procedure has begun. Joel goes to Barnes & Noble, but Clementine doesn't recognize him. A younger boy comes along and she says, Patrick, baby boy. Kisses him right in front of Joel, which sends him on a destructive path where he goes to Lacuna and sees Patrick in the middle of his Clementine tape. Now we see the exact moment Joel picks up on this. Patrick, and he can hear everything that they're saying. So when Patrick gets on the phone with Clementine and calls her Tangerine, it prompts him to enter an earlier dream where he tries to figure out Patrick's identity, but it just doesn't work. Now he gets all that erased and goes into the next dream where she dyed her hair Agent Orange. And then he realizes, after he called her Tangerine, that Patrick's doing it too. So Joel asks, how does he know to call you that, since Patrick has only ever seen her with blue hair, possibly green, but probably just blue. He tracks down the Lacuna office in his dreams, sees Patrick, asks who he is, This is the most obvious but the most enjoyable reincorporated dialogue in the film. So the night of the procedure, Joel goes home and sees his neighbor's mail that has Lacuna on it, meaning he got a card similar to the ones that his friends showed him when taking pity on him. Clementine's name fades off of it in a few frames, and he goes to the Lacuna office where he sees these cards being printed en masse. Now, earlier in the film, when Joel was staring into the window of the vacant beach house, he definitely heard a voice, and the words were, what? Why? It's our house, just for tonight. David and Ruth Laskin, just like in the scene near the end of the procedure where he has his first memory with her. She says the same lines, you can go back and check it. Just make sure to wear good headphones. So the word nice is used in this movie abundantly, and there's a good reason for it. Most of it to explain Joel's anxiety, and later to explain Clementine's anxiety. But the first bits we get of it are negative reinforcement to stop Joel from saying what he actually wants to say. And eventually, she adopts it later the night they meet for the second time. And then eventually, we see why she reacted badly when Patrick calls her nice. And she didn't like it.
What?
So to expand on Joel's negative reinforcement to not say the things he feels, this is his treatment when he said there's a good story to the snow globe.
Mr. Bershak, I'll get a much better emotional readout if you refrain from any sort of verbal description of the items.
And I'll touch on the nature of Clementine's anxiety when we talk about the Stalker Handbook. But just to conclude my thoughts on the word nice being used so much, I feel like it's there to show us that this isn't a beautiful relationship. It's a mundane, mediocre, petty relationship between two people who are drawn together that shouldn't be together. But I'm not here to judge their relationship. That's up to you if you think they'll make it. But I don't think they've learned anything, nor will they. Now, in Clementine's apartment, Joel goes up to have a drink, sees all these potato figurines. Later, Patrick mentions this to Stan when they're talking about his new girlfriend, so he brings up the idea that he began to date somebody that they did the treatment on. I might be wrong, but I think Blue Ruin is the house that Joel goes up to in the beginning of the film. They call it their house, even though it's David and Ruth Laskin's. She says her hair color is Blue Ruin. We know this. I think it represents denial. Get into that with the 5 stages of grief. Clementine likes to drink Blue Ruin rum. Could be any alcohol. She's drinking a beer and Kang's, and he calls her a wino. And she says this.
Are you okay with wine?
In the house. Well, rather, the house later, which is actually earlier. So she goes up to slip into something more because she's ruthless, and this happens to the house, a Blue Ruin. And as time goes on with these scenes, the house gets enveloped by the sea, and this blue filter gets more and more intense with the color grading as the scene goes on, until finally his memory of Clementine fades away entirely, in which she has the creative idea of making up a goodbye, talking about meet me in Montauk. That's what I think the Blue Ruin is. Let's move on to the next bit, the 5 stages of grief. The Kubler-Ross model shows denial first. Clem's hair, Blue Ruin, represents this denial. They rekindle their relationship completely unaware of their history, and the spark of a new relationship takes over. Something, don't know history, doomed to Second comes anger, and Clem's hair is Agent Orange for this one. We see the resentment as the procedure begins to erase his memory from most recent to most novel. There are bits of love in between this that make it hard to prove the stages of grief is represented, as I say, in this hair-brain theory, but 2 things to consider. Anger is not an off and on switch, it's a gradual, pernicious process that gets accelerated by bottling things up, which Joel does. The next is that it's called Agent Orange, masquerading as an emotion it would rather be. Clem specifically says in her Joel tape, he makes her bitchy, and she doesn't like being bitchy. This love is seen mostly at the end of the orange-haired scenes, but the seeds of anger and resentment had been planted. Before her hair turns red, Joel has a revelation and begs Dr. Mierzwiak to let him keep this one. Third comes bargaining, and Clem's hair becomes Red Menace. Joel makes attempts to run from the Lacuna erasers steering his dreams. His subconscious version of Clementine helps him come up with creative ways for outrunning them, which works well until Stan calls Howard Mierzwiak in. These scenes have a lot of sound design reveals that I'll get into later. Joel tracks down the Lacuna office in already erased memories to try to beg for a way out. When Howard takes over for Stan, the dreams begin erasing in fast motion. Clem's creative ideas for running away become less successful, and she starts remembering less and less, becoming a menace. She goes back and forth between acting like she does in the memories and remembering that they're supposed to be running. Their last interaction with her Red Menace hair color is heartbreaking, maybe even depressing. Fourth comes depression, and Clem's hair is Green Revolution. This scene seems so much like acceptance, but it's not. It's got a feel of hopelessness to it, an unwillingness to run. The only thing he has accepted is that he can't run. He has not come to terms with his grief. While they're walking on the beach, she's acting like she did in the memory, and he's sluggishly writing it out. All I could say to substantiate this is in the Blue Ruin section. Fifth comes... what? She mentioned yellow fever, but that hair was never used in the movie. It's over. Back to blue. Back to denial. A vicious cycle. If the movie has any point whatsoever, it's that they can't accept or come to terms with their incompatibility. There is no hair color for acceptance because there is no acceptance. There is only a helmet for temporary salvation.
You're not a stalker or anything, right?
I'm not a stalker. You're the one that talked to me, remember?
That is the oldest trick in the stalker book.
Really? There's a stalker book? Okay. I gotta read that one.
So we're shown over and over again that Joel compulsively writes to document his experience instead of connecting with other people, passive-aggressively, while on his own, drawing bad drawings. Despite the drawings being crude, he documents his experiences meticulously with his words, and in this particular narrative, somebody can use that to their advantage in a devastating, inhumane, psychopathic way.
We'll dispose of these mementos when we're done here. That way you won't be confused later by their unexplainable presence in your home.
So despite company policy and rogue employees, these mementos were not disposed of.
The journal will be invaluable.
So I grant this is self-evident, but in order to understand Clem's experience versus Joel's, we need to understand how she thinks of his writing.
I want to read some of those journals you're constantly scribbling in. What are you writing there if you don't have any thoughts or passions or love?
So we see Patrick rummaging through Joel's journal after Clementine invites him to the Charles, just a slimy move.
I can die right now, Clem. I'm just happier.
So Patrick and Clementine go to the frozen Charles while Joel confronts Merzwiak.
He sold my stuff. He's seducing my girlfriend with my words and my things.
In another great example of characters having parallel thinking, as Joel subconsciously figures it out, so does Clementine.
I'm just happy. I've never felt that before. I'm just exactly where I want to be.
Selfishly using those journals to gain his own kind of advantage, he turns Clementine into an absolute wreck, forcing her to open neural pathways that have been shut down, showing why she's confused, why she feels like she's getting older, having lost 2 years. He's forcing it all back to the surface. Her last interaction with Patrick, Joel tells her to get out of his car after hearing her tape. He's waiting outside her house like he was earlier that morning.
Can we talk about it?
No, get the phone away!
And she freaks out, rightfully so. Devastated after all that has happened, feeling so confused, and thus we must talk about the science of forgetting. So this isn't going to be a lesson or anything like that, just the way the title disappears uniformly across like information packets, whether it's something distributed or received. So the film has a very interesting way of pinpointing unwanted memories, and through this process they have this animation that I think gets some kind of idea right about what memories were to look like. It's not that they have shape, it's that you have neural pathways, and whenever you remember something, you reinforce those pathways, and if they can find a way to only fry those specific pathways, your entire many years of memory of something could really be like a heavy night of drinking, along the same damage level.
The procedure is brain damage, but it's on a par with a night of heavy drinking. Nothing you'll miss.
So Joel gathers up his mementos and he sees a man beside him with a bowling trophy, maybe from his wife, and a woman beside him with her dog's memorabilia. So this movie gets the compassionate motive right, the science behind what memories pretty much are right, shows you how you might go about getting rid of them. But underneath all of that, I wonder, what if Clementine's experience is similar to Joel's? What if Mary's experience was similar to Joel's? What if they fell back in love with the idea they have of someone in their head as their memories were getting erased? What would have this movie been like from Clementine's experience inside the Lacuna dream sequences? What would have Mary's? A lot of people seem to think they find their way back to each other for some true love idea. I mean, we know Joel's experience. I think it has a foundation in the stages of grief, but we know that he faces regret for his decision to erase Clementine. She helps him creatively run from the Lacuna erasers, but I'm inclined to believe Joel's was a unique experience. Stan says to Howard Merzwiak that Joel has developed a resistance to the treatment. It may be that Joel's experience is an anomaly. Joel creatively running away, his idea of Clementine helps him create a new goodbye about Montauk, which he remembers subconsciously, skips work and finds her there. Since she whispered Montauk in his ear, people seem to think that his dreams also affected her. This is explained easier by Clementine's attempts to feel better when confused. She takes Patrick with her to the frozen Charles. She might have also taken him to the beach on Montauk, but she chose to go without him.
You want to go out to Montauk with me?
After her negative experiences with him. Joel subconsciously remembers because of his idea of Clementine's creativity, helping him create something worth remembering. And Clementine subconsciously remembers by Patrick constantly opening those fried neural pathways after the procedure takes place and sends her into a frenzy, looking for something to complete her in this time of crisis.
Change your heart.
This brilliant screenplay by Charlie Kaufman offers a lot of insight into Joel's mindset throughout the procedure. We get his external and internal dialogue in tandem.
Are we like those bored couples you feel sorry for in restaurants?
This granted the director Michel Gondry a lot of length on the creative leash with how to present relevant information.
Charlie's script was it was very specifically written. But like when we would say...
There was room, though. That's the surprising thing that people might not think about, is that, I mean, Charlie's scripts are as close to, you know, perfect as you can get.
A lot of Charlie Kaufman's personality traits can be found throughout the film.
Really solid this time of year.
Whoa, I don't know.
Go on.
That parallel his own anxieties, such as when he received the award for Best Screenplay for this movie.
Thanks to the Academy. 29 seconds, 27 seconds. That's really intimidating. I'm supposed to wrap up now. And no, I don't want to take my time. I want to get off the stage. So, thank you.
This screenplay reads like a favorite book. The most obvious is the Lacuna erasers leaving the morning after the procedure. When Joel is standing outside of the blue ruined beach house, he hears a voice inside, the remnants of a memory. It's Clem's voice, and she says, "What? It's our house. Just for tonight. We are David and Ruth Laskin."
She loved me.
What?
I think we should go.
Why? It's our house. Just for tonight. We are David and Ruth Laskin.
Clementine tells Joel to take her to humiliation, and the sound design has the children from his neighborhood laughing and peer pressuring him to kill the bird before he chooses to reveal the masturbation memory.
Humiliation.
Come on, baby.
I'm sorry. Okay. I can't. I gotta go home.
You know what's wrong with
You know what, honey? I'm just gonna ask you in the morning.
This shows Joel's better nature. He feels sharing getting caught as preferable to sharing his childhood memory of killing a bird with a hammer. Once again, this is his internal anxiety creating problems that aren't there. Now, while she does mock him for getting caught by his mom, she comforts him when he feels shame for his actions as a child.
I'm so ashamed.
It's okay. You were a little kid.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's where I lived.
When you see the two kids coming back to his house, it's a very charming moment, and they were actually here, Jim and Kate, behind the camera with a microphone, verbalizing what they were actually doing. And I mean, any producer would tell me, well, you don't have to ask the actor to do that. But to me, it was important because I think by you being out with them, even if you were not on camera, it would make it sound charming, unreal.
The vast majority of special effects were in-camera illusions, trick rooms, or elaborate single takes to achieve the desired effect. When the Lacuna procedure begins, Joel visits Barnes & Noble to give Clementine her present for Valentine's Day, and Patrick shows up. When Joel leaves, Barnes & Noble transitions seamlessly into Rob and Carrie's living room where they're consoling him. In one take, with real-world manipulations, the first of many in-camera special effects revealed itself. There's not much to say about this scene. Nature made the iconic Lake Charles spot possible. When Joel hears Patrick admit to Stan that he stole Clementine's underwear, Joel is eating Chinese food, and the image on the TV in front of him lines up with him.
Patrick, you stole a girl's panties.
In an awesome single take, Joel visits Dr. Merswiak in a previously erased memory where he's having his consultation for the procedure. The take starts with Joel walking down the hall and Jim Carrey moved around the camera as it panned from Joel to Merswiak to past Joel to Merswiak to Joel, and so on and so forth. In Joel's childhood memory with his mother and his sitter, Mrs. Hamlin, which is actually Clementine, the height differentiations are caused by an illusion from a trick room with a declined slope fit to scale. In the same scene, Joel and Clementine are in the sink having a bath as babies, but it's actually a hot tub with a camera angled over the shoulder of someone from a distance. This scene also caused some major problems between Jim Carrey and Michel Gondry, till they got together later that night and made this.
Sing my Elvis song that I created called Pecan Pie. And all of a pecan pie. And so we went out to do this in the middle of shooting.
All was well.
Ended up like he's chasing me around, you've got to get back in the tub, you've got to get back in the tub, and I'm like this, and I almost smacked him.
Yeah,
and he's like,
confronted me.
he goes, yeah, I turned and I gave him a look, and he goes, are you going to punch me in the face? And I go, I don't think so.
When Joel last sees Clementine with her red menace hair, the books in the background begin with different covers, and over time, the details fade. This was accomplished through multiple takes, and between them, random books would be turned backwards to give the illusion they were fading until every book on its shelf was turned around for the final effect. The last scene of the dream sequence, Joel and Clementine are inside David and Ruth Laskin's beach house, and the tide invades the living room. This was done in camera in a house that succumbed to nature. And with that, it's over. We did it! The Kubler-Ross model shows denial first. Clem's hair, Blue Ruin, represents this denial. They rekindle their relationship completely. First thing we're going to be taking a look at is the stalker book.
You're not a stalker or anything, right?
I'm not a stalker. You're the one that talked to me, remember?
That is the oldest trick in the stalker book.
Really? There's a stalker book? I gotta read that one.
Whoa, hang on. What do I want to do next? What do I want to do?
What we gonna do? I don't know. What do you want to do?